Welcome to this episode of Focus In, and today I have Nic. Hi Nic, how you doing?
Hello Cameron.
All right.
Yeah, I'm really well, thanks.
Good. Could you introduce yourself first of all for those watching and listening? Who are you? What's your role?
Yep, I'm Nic Smith. I am the Deputy Principal at InFocus College, and I'm also the Head of the Visual Impairment Services here too.
Amazing. That's two very cool, important roles.
Very
important. And today we're going to be talking about supporting vision impairment in specialist education settings.
Yeah.
And to kick us off, could you just give us a sense of the type of vision impairments you might see in schools and colleges typically?
There are all different kinds of visual impairment. So it's important to say that no one learner is the same. Everybody will have a different visual impairment. It can be low vision. It can be no vision whatsoever, so complete blindness. Yep. It can be CVI, which is a brain-induced visual impairment. It can be visual field loss. It can be a whole range. So a degenerative sight loss as well is something you might experience. So there's just a whole range. No one learner will have the same profile. So it's very different for everybody.
Absolutely. I think that's quite important to know as well, because maybe some people might just think, it's visual impairment.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to that.
Yeah, so much more. Yeah, because you can be registered as sight impaired, but you can also be registered as severely sight impaired and also blind. So it's different levels of visual impairment, I suppose.
Absolutely. Okay. Now let's talk maybe a little bit about the challenges a learner might find. So if they've got visual impairment, and other disabilities with their day-to-day kind of going to school, going to college in an education setting, what would they find challenging with that?
For a learner with visual impairment, just day to day, it's just about accessing information around them, I suppose. They don't have that at hand very easily, maybe. So it's just general access to information can be really challenging. Obviously, the obvious physical ones like mobility and orientation. So if you're getting around college or like you say, going to college and from college, even that can be a struggle in itself. And just general interaction with peers and staff, that can be challenging for a visually impaired young person. There's that real lack of communication physically, so they're very much relying on other senses to communicate. Also just fatigue as well, if there's visual impairment and other needs, that they can fatigue a lot more. Visual fatigue and also just brain overload and tiredness can be a real challenge for someone like that. And
you mentioned actually just physically getting to a setting as well, which I think you can take for granted sometimes. You think about the challenging part of education is when you're in a school or in a college, it's tricky, but actually sometimes we've got a challenge before we even get to that setting.
Absolutely. It's the whole process, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And now that's more sort of about learning, but does it make a difference to sort of development and confidence as well? Because I think doing these podcasts, a lot of what we've talked about is a specialist college can really support in terms of confidence, social skills, relationships, all of that kind of thing. So does that have an effect on that as well?
There's the if you're talking about education and vision impairment and a visually impaired learner, there are real challenges to access education. But education isn't just being in a classroom and learning maths and English, and it's the whole package. You make friends at school, you make relationships with the staff that you work with at lunchtime, all of those things come into it. So for a visually impaired person, even those things can be really challenging. But the social interaction is a real passion of mine at this setting in particular. But, for all places where a visually impaired learner might go, social interaction is so difficult with low vision or no vision.
Yeah, of course.
So much communication is nonverbal, and a lot of incidental learning is lost if you haven't got that vision. So little gestures that we might do to each other and the way that we communicate right now, we know whose turn it is to talk. We know where there's just certain things that they're missing socially that can become really challenging, and that can knock confidence as well, not really feeling where they fit into a group socially. So there's some real challenges, and that's something I feel really passionate about. It's important to have that common room space so they can have peers around them and learn how to interact with the visual struggles, I suppose.
And that's things that you wouldn't think of initially as well, which I think is really quite important to hear. But actually it's quite basic tasks sometimes, or interactions, like you say, can be more challenging, and understanding that though as well is important. And is there things that help support that? So something that you would have in a specialist college, is there ways that you would help in supporting with those kind of interactions.
Definitely. That in a specialist setting, yes, I would say if a visually impaired learner went to a mainstream setting, it's not necessarily something they'd get to focus on, but in a specialist setting, there would be that focus on functional communication skills. How do we communicate with different people? How do we have appropriate conversations? So it is a real thing. It needs to be a discreetly taught skill, I would say.
Part of the education, if you like. And what I've been talking about as well on other episodes is about how education isn't just about the maths and the English. There's so much to it.
There's so much to education.
That's something that needs to be integrated into it as well.
Yeah, and that's what a specialist setting is. It's not your standard mainstream curriculum. The curriculum for a specialist setting should really cover not just the functional skills, but the independent skills and the communication skills and the social skills and, all of those things to prepare for the future that you can't get in a normal classroom.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think with some young people, it's not just visual impairment that they're faced with. There may be multiple or complex needs as well. So how does visual impairment fit into that? Because if you've got other things going on that you need help with, and how does it fit in,
Yeah, it's a tricky one for if there are complex needs involved with the young person as well. There's different things. Sometimes visual impairment can just go completely under the radar. Maybe it hasn't even been diagnosed.
Right, okay.
Because it's just not a priority. There might be health needs or behavioural needs or other kind of difficulties. So sometimes VI isn't even diagnosed because it might be a brain-induced vision impairment, which can sometimes be misinterpreted as well for a certain behaviour or sensory seeking, but actually it's about visual challenges, and it might take a specialist to realise and go, oh, that's because they're struggling with their visual field, or so
it could be links sometimes as well.
Absolutely. There are certain direct links between, let's say, cerebral palsy and a visual impairment. So I just think it's having an awareness, because of all the other complex needs, they sort of overshadow the visual impairment, and that's really important to not miss that. It's enormous.
Because some things, I know you may have something that's more pressing, that it is, like you say, health is really important. Yeah. But then sometimes that means that something like VI can be sort of pushed down a little bit down the list. And so I think that awareness, I guess, for any setting really, to be aware that might be something that needs to be supported and looked into as well. Yeah. So what difference can having specialist knowledge in VI have? So in terms of supporting people, is that really important to have that specialist VI knowledge?
Yeah, I would say so, because you need to have an accurate understanding of what that visual impairment means for the young person. I guess it's easy for a bit of paperwork to say this is their VI diagnosis and this is what they can and can't see. Yeah. Okay. So, but if you don't have that specialist knowledge, I suppose it would be hard to interpret what that means in the classroom or putting it into practice. So actually having a genuine understanding of what that means for the young person in a functional way, because then that specialist can then disseminate that information and support staff. So they might need certain adaptations or the environment in a certain way, the way that you communicate with them. So that specialist knowledge is really important. And also a specialist might be able to teach those kind of compensatory skills. So if they're missing their vision in some way, they might need tactile learning, they might need braille learning or access technology. So those specialist skills
can make a huge difference.
Yeah, they can. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. That's interesting as well. And what kind of things can they do in terms of, because that's, I love what you say there, is having it on a piece of paper. Yeah. Okay, right. So they struggle with this and they struggle with this. But how do you convey that and put that into a way you can support as well? That's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, it is tricky.
To understand what it's like for that young person, because you're not actually that person. No. So how do you know what they struggle with?
Yeah,
really?
You can never really have a true idea of knowing. But I guess it's about, for me, in my role anyway, the functional vision assessments that we do, it's watching them in everyday situations, and vision can change too. So it's seeing, you have to know the learner and how they experience their environment. And then you use that as a strategy to support them every day. That makes sense. But it's just sharing that knowledge with the people that support it. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, and it's like, living with them a little bit, isn't it? And experiencing, spending a day with them and saying, okay, well, that's actually really quite complicated having to do that in that situation, and just building a bit of a relationship.
Even
I guess,
just watching how they might reach for something, or how they move around a classroom, or how they are looking at a screen. Just those day-to-day experiences will help you with your practice around that young person.
Yeah, and there's a lot to it, isn't there?
Yeah, there
really
is.
Yeah. And it's good. I think that's important for settings such as schools and colleges to have that awareness of, okay, it's great when you get a load of information that says, well, this is how this person sees, but
how do you apply it?
How do you apply it, and how do you support it to that young person as well?
Absolutely.
And that leads on really nicely to talk about how a school and how a college, how they can make a setting more friendly, if that makes sense, for people with visual impairment.
There's lots of small things, I guess, a setting can do to support a VI learner. So environmentally, it can be things as simple as having better contrast in a room. So if you've got a display up, having a very clear boundary around a border, and just clear, bold contrast and presentation is really important. And edging, let's say, along edges of steps or railing, and just getting around. So if you're trying to imagine a VI learner navigating around a space, having sort of landmarks that can help them. So when they find a certain thing on a wall, let's say, they know that if they turn left here, it takes them in a certain direction. So there's lots of physical things you can do to help them with their navigation. And also just not keeping the layout predictable. And if you're moving a layout, which does happen sometimes in settings in classrooms, doesn't it? Like I used to do it all the time in previous work. I used to clear all the tables to do certain sessions. But if you're doing things like that, it's just about communicating it with the learner. But if you can, keep it predictable and keep it the same. If there's someone with no vision, they often map out a location in their mind, so then they can remember and they can start to navigate independently.
And that's really useful to know, isn't it? If you're somebody who's in a setting where you've got a VI learner, is thinking, okay, this is how I need to approach that as well. And just simple things of, actually, you see it quite a lot in schools, don't you? Let's do a U shape with the tables today because why not? Let's change it up. But actually, it's having that awareness, thinking, well, we need to convey that and make sure that they're aware.
And it completely changes their mind map if you're just changing things like that. And there might be reasons for it, but if you're trying to get their independence up and their confidence up, then you have to involve them in that kind of decision making, I suppose.
Absolutely. And that's kind of physical things you mentioned, such as how you navigate a space. But is there things that you can do in terms of communication, teaching strategies, how you actually work with that young person to teach them, basically?
When I do the VI awareness training at this setting for new staff that join us, I teach them to kind of learn how to audio describe your life.
Really?
I don't know if you've ever experienced audio description. So if you watch a movie or if you go to theatre, audio description is an option on TV programs and stuff, on most, not always.
All right,
but you almost have to get used to audio describing things that you're doing in a classroom setting or wherever you might be with that learner. So as simple as, I'm just walking over to this computer here to send an email. I'm sitting in the corner of the room. Or you might say, you might describe what's on the table. You name people that are in the room. You have to just use language all the time to keep them involved, because otherwise if people are coming in and out of the room, that you have to announce that, because it feels a bit unfair that why are they kept in the dark about it? They should be entitled to know what's going on around them. So that audio description is key.
And the thing is quite an easy thing to do, but it makes a massive difference for that learner.
And some people feel weird about it. You know, when you go up to someone and say, "Hi, it's Nic," but that's just second nature to me and everybody here. You just immediately do it. So even if you think they've got, their vision is quite good and they know it's you, it's just a reassurance to them. Like, "Hi, it's Nic." And then they know it's you and they've got that immediate reassurance. They know who they're talking to. Or so-and-so's just come into the room. Hello. And,
I think that's quite important.
Keep that dialogue going.
And it's important to do that with everyone anyway, because it just includes everyone as well. Like not just sort of saying, I'm only going to speak to one individual like that. I think this is just the practice, the way you speak to everyone to make everyone feel involved.
We're going back to what we were saying about, that missing incidental learning. When you're having a group chat, the naming is so important, because so often they don't know who's being spoken to. There's a student I have in my head and she's always saying, "Are you talking to me?" She can't see me. She doesn't know who's talking to her. So you have to use the name and say, "So-and-so, this is, what do you think? You know, so
Yeah,
the
so it's just
use of a
adapting, isn't
name
it, as
is
well?
really important. Like, it's so powerful to just use someone's name
Yeah.
to include them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, tips like that though, it is so important, and things that people might not know. You know, I'm sat here thinking, next time I would speak to somebody, maybe if I'm at InFocus and I'm working with young people, I would adapt how I speak to them, and it makes a big difference.
And even if you know they know it's you, it doesn't hurt.
Because some of us are quite unique. You can tell from the voice, but actually just doing that anyway, just getting into that practice just makes sense. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Now talking about assistive technology play, can we talk about like how big a role that plays, because it can have a real big you can make a big difference, right?
Yeah, assistive technology is getting a bit wild, isn't it? There's just scary, so much out there, so much out there. And it's always been around, but it's just new things are coming up, and new things are being trialed. I'm lucky enough to get to go to different events and see what's going on in the world of tech in VI particularly, but a lot of it applies to complex needs as well. I went up to a conference in Nottingham just last week actually, and it's just interesting to see the new stuff that's coming out.
It's always developing.
It is. But the impact it can make for a young person, it's about equal access. You know, so it might give them access to something that they've never been able to access before, and it gives them independence as well, or ownership over something. So where they might have relied on a staff member to help them with something, they might be able to use technology to help them instead.
So there's a bit more independence.
Absolutely. So things like a screen reader to read out an email for them, or an app on their phone to read a menu, or, you know, there's all sorts of things like that. So there's lots of apps out there, like Seeing AI, Be My Eyes and Be My AI, and navigational apps as well. So there's a lot of really good VI designed apps that are out there now that are supporting independence for our learners, and accessibility on different products, like on the iPhone and the iPad. It's just incredible. I'm not much of an Android person. I need to clue myself up on it, but Apple products, their accessibility is amazing. And the way that the students here are learning how to scan through and tap, and you know, if they've got no vision, the skills that they're learning,
it's incredible.
It's just amazing. And go on.
I was going to say, like, how you can adapt technology as well. You know, like I know there's a radio station here that you use, but how it's been adapted so that everyone can take part. So it's not that only certain people that may have better vision, for example, you know, that are able to get involved. Everyone can get involved, and that's and it's really important.
Not just like the high end, how do I describe it? The more low tech, assistive tech, I suppose, like switches. Because I think you've seen them being used in the radio station before, haven't you? So that just allows access for our learners. And even if let's say they're visually impaired and non-verbal, or they don't have the physical skills and dexterity to be able to use a touch pad or something, you know, switches give them new accessibility into things. And AAC devices are just amazing, and they give our young people a voice. So there's all sorts of tech.
That's what it is, isn't it?
There's one person here that's using smart glasses at the moment, and that's the one that's blowing my mind.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
they're
awesome.
Just really amazing.
Yeah.
They really are, because she has no vision, and it's just giving her access to the world in a way that she's never had before. It can just describe what's around her. It can help with her navigation. It can play music to her in a, you know, try not to let her do it in lessons.
Of course.
But you know, it's just transformative, and it's getting really good. It's really including the VI learners, I think, into accessing the world.
And I think the biggest thing from that is just it is the independence, isn't it? Because 100%. It's great having people that have that knowledge, like we've been talking about, and that can assist. But if they can have that a little bit of autonomy in a way, isn't it, where they can say, I can go and do this on my own now. It's not because they don't like the help of someone else. It just gives them that extra little bit of independence.
Exactly. That's what it's all about.
Confidence as well, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Which is really important as well. Now, if I were a parent looking for a special college or school for my child with visual impairment, what do you think I should be looking out for? Is there certain things that I should be checking that are in place, things that might really support my young person in their journey?
I guess I would say the staff expertise is going to be an important one. So if you're looking for a specialist college for a VI and complex needs, you need to have the staff expertise at the, so access to a QTVI would be really important. Okay. So and that's a qualified teacher of visual impairment.
Yeah.
And all visually impaired learners should have access to that, because they're the ones that can do those functional vision assessments and help them access their education.
Yeah.
Curriculum is obviously a massive one. So not your sort of bog standard. I don't mean that term, but not your typical curriculum that you might get in a mainstream. So it doesn't need to just focus on your maths and your English and your functional skills. They're important, but a focus on independence will be really important. A focus on social skills and community, navigation and mobility, preparing for the future. What do they genuinely need to get them ready for when they leave education? So looking at the curriculum is a really important thing to look at,
and the wider curriculum, isn't it? Like you've just touched on.
Exactly. What else? Just the culture, I suppose, making sure that culture is right, and everyone's got that experience of working with the different needs and the different visual needs and other complex needs. And the environment itself as well, making sure it's well designed and supports the visual learner to feel confident navigating around their setting.
Because that will support the learning. I mean, we've just had lunch and we've seen all the young people come in and talking about environment and culture. It's incredible here, and that makes a big difference, because you can see they're all, I was speaking to Sonia earlier, and she was saying how, they are such a big part of the community, from the bottom up, from the students up is how it makes it such a great place and how they thrive. So I think that's a big part. It's looking at more than just the nuts and bolts of education, which I think sometimes is how people view an education setting. Maybe it's just like, what are they getting here? What are they achieving? What are we covering? But actually there's so much more to it.
Education isn't just sitting in a classroom and doing exams, and we do that here. We do qualifications. It's part of it. It's part of it, but it's everything else that's around it, and the skills that specifically a visually impaired learner needs. They need to learn those skills before they can be prepared to live a full life.
And how do you think somewhere like InFocus can make a big difference for somebody maybe with visual impairment, complex needs? How does that make a huge difference to them?
InFocus, I think, just has a huge impact. I've been here since 2017.
Okay,
and I just witness the impact every day, whether it's just mini moments or the long term, seeing from when they've arrived here to when they leave, just the impact it can have on their lives for the future. A big one is just confidence. Actually, it gives them a sense of, people understand me here, and they do things that I need, and so it gives them that self-belief and self-confidence that they can take, and that's a huge part of just being a person, isn't it? Just believe in yourself. And I feel like we instill that in them. We teach them that you can do it, you can do this independently, you don't need us, you just need the scaffolding, we'll get you there, and then you can do it yourself. So that impact is seen. Luckily I get to see it all the time, and it's just, I guess we have that kind of holistic approach. So it's not just about one way. It's very bespoke to every learner. Every learner has their own way of learning. And so we tap into that and make sure it's well supported and adapted. Everything we do is adapted around their individual interests and, passions and aspirations for the future. So we everything's bespoke. And we have a great multidisciplinary team here. We're so lucky to have everybody on site with our therapy team, our mobility team, the teachers, the care, everything's here, and I feel very lucky in that respect. That's what I think is the charm of InFocus, is that it's such a team, and everyone's learner focused, and we all bring our own skills to it. So obviously I bring the VI bit, but there's so many other things surrounding a young person. I think there's so much that makes up a young person.
Definitely. And we've got to talk about some examples if you've got any. So maybe an example of how all this expertise, the correct setting, everything that we've talked about today, how someone with VI can really thrive in an experience, in a setting like this, because of what they've got.
No names, just a person in my head.
Let's give us, okay. If you've got any examples that come to mind,
Okay, so there's lots. I would say there's a young lady that sticks in my head. She's been here she's coming up to the end of she's in her 3rd year. When she arrived at InFocus, and parents are the ones that say this to me all the time as well,
Right.
in her
Yeah.
previous setting, there wasn't very much that she was allowed to do.
Okay.
So she was sort of excluded from a lot of stuff. She had never learnt to access reading and writing and that kind of stuff.
Right.
She couldn't, and she was very quiet. Well, no, I don't think she was quiet, but she was never really stand up for herself
Right.
and say
Okay.
exactly, So,
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
she was always bubbly and happy, but she just kind of went along with what was going on. And then they finally got her a place here. And since she's been here, she's been able to learn Braille. So she's finally accessing like literacy skills, and she's reading for the first time. She's learned how to touch type. She didn't have a phone before she came here. So in the 2nd year she was here, Dad and her decided that she could have a smartphone, and now she's a whiz on her phone because of accessibility features that we talked about. So she's contacting friends, and she's made an amazing group of friends as well. She's just super confident. Her mobility skills, she's going out into the community using her long cane that she's been taught how to use, and she's just a fast learner as well. So because she's such a yes person, she's just soaked in all of this new learning, and it's changed who she is, and she's just a joy.
Awesome.
And she is so ready to go in. She might even go into the world of work. Hopefully, that's what she's.
That's amazing.
So
like that transformation.
The opportunities,
as well.
yeah. I like to think that that's what we've helped her to do.
Yeah. That's such a nice, and it's nice to put an example to obviously all we've talked about, and then you see an example of what difference it makes as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's so amazing to hear. Yeah, and we've talked about teachers and support staff, and the knowledge base, and how actually somewhere like InFocus has so many different knowledge bases, so many people that have so much experience. But do you have any advice that you would give to teachers, support staff who are maybe new to working with students that have VI?
Yeah, are we talking widely here? Just any teacher or support staff that might be
someone who's
working
new
with...
to that, and they've come into it, and they're saying, right, you're going to work with people with VI, and it's could be quite a bit daunting initially, because I haven't had experience of this before. I'm not quite sure what to expect. Have you got any advice of how to approach that?
Yeah, I guess the first thing would just be like empathy, I suppose. Okay. Try and put yourself in their shoes and try and imagine how are they living their life day to day.
Yeah.
So we do a similar thing in our training. We get them to staff to try on sleep shades. How does it feel to just have your vision taken away with you? How do you interact with the person? So we try and give empathy in our training sessions, and we've got simulation specs to try different visions. Different visual profiles, so you can see what it might be like to just have a cloudy vision, or central lost vision, or something like that. So try and imagine how they might be feeling first of all, and so just to get that empathy, try and have a real accurate understanding of what their vision is. Because you can't just put them all into the same, they're blind, I'm working with someone with vision impairment, they said they can't see anything. They're all different. So really genuinely try and understand what their vision is.
Yeah, it's just unique, isn't it, every time?
It is, yeah. And then I think a really big one is don't feel nervous to let them try things that you might think, oh no, they won't be able to do that. You've got to keep those high aspirations for them. Don't be afraid. Let them join in on everything if you can. If it's physically possible, let them try everything. Don't ask. Some of our guys here, they go sailing and they go rock climbing and abseiling and all sorts of activities that some people might go, oh no, they can't do that because it's way too risky. I just think they should have all equal opportunities, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? So have high aspirations.
That's great advice.
Don't hold them back because you're nervous. If they want to do it, just go for it. And what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to become the person that obviously is holding them back.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
actually they're capable of doing that.
Yeah.
So
inclusion. It's all about inclusion, isn't it? Let them be involved in everything. Don't think that they can't do. Don't come up with a different activity because you think they can't do it with the others. Just try all you can to keep them involved.
And I think you'll learn a lot from that as well, because you'll try and think, okay, so we did struggle with that, and it was that element of that we struggled with. So next time you approach it, we just need to
Just
adapt it slightly,
yeah.
rather than going straight away from the off going, okay, this isn't going to work, we need to adapt it.
Yeah.
You need to try it a little bit and don't be afraid to.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great advice. And that's what a good nugget of information to finish on, I think.
Yeah,
but
good.
Thank you for joining us, because I think that's going to really help all sorts of settings, and just get some information and support, and just know that, just to try it and go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I love that last bit of information.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Yes.